Hey guys, welcome to BluePrint Legacy and Launch. This is episode 1 of hopefully many, but this is our first one of a 6-month season.
Sure. Numero uno.
Numero uno. So I just kind of want to get it started off with introductions. Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of where you started and where you're at now.
So my name's Andrew McQuade, owner of the McQuade organization. I've been with Globe and in the industry for 15 years. Started back in Denver, Colorado, right after college. And then I helped build that operation. It was a great experience. Jumped into leadership. We expanded our territory. We started just a single office in Colorado. Don't quote me on the timeline, but I think like 4 or 5 months into it, we started getting access to other states. So I got the whole traveling salesman experience doing that, and the glorious world of hotels in Nebraska and Kansas. And then I got into senior leadership, where we started expanding into Texas and like leads and working clients in Oklahoma. And so we expanded a lot. That went on for about 9 years. Then I jumped into corporate. We'll probably dive into this, but I'm not really sure why. I mean, there were a couple reasons why I guess I jumped into corporate. A little bit of it, I think, was running, you know what I mean? Like pastures are greener type mentality. No disrespect to my corporate adventures, because it was a great learning lesson, but the pastures were definitely not greener. They were just a different shade of gray or green. But yeah, I did that for 9 months, and that was right when COVID happened. So I start January 2020. January 2020. And it was March 2020 when the lockdown happened. So when I started in corporate, I was in training come January 1st. We were flying every week all across the nation. It was a wild schedule, which once again, we'll probably get into that a little deeper later. But it was a wild schedule. 3 months of training, got released, and literally the day I got released, we got the news that we're not traveling anymore, we're working from home. So wow. The 90 days of that was completely, I mean, it wasn't pointless, but it was not a representation of what the job was going to be moving forward. So then I did that from March until August, worked from home in a tiny basement, in a completely different role than I was used to. And then I got the opportunity, I was like third or fourth in line to buy half of, and back then we called them agencies, now organizations. I got the opportunity, thanks to the president of our company, to purchase half of an agency out here in the Bay Area. They gave me like 4 days to think about it, and I think I called them back like an hour and a half later. I was like, I'm doing it. Because like, once again, the corporate lifestyle was just, it's a great learning experience, but it just was not conducive to what I wanted to do, and I think it was a good wake-up call for me, and yada, yada, yada. But moved my whole family out to California during COVID lockdown. It was like The Walking Dead or something, dude. Like, no one was on the roads, no one was going to hotels, and we were like stopping in hotels, and it was funny, the receptionist would always act like we were infected or something, and like it was a wild experience. But so yeah, we planned our roots out here, and the organization kind of blew up. We went fully virtual, and we reorganized, we rescripted, we rebranded, and I had a series of leaders that were with the company for a bit, and then we started obviously doing recruiting practices and all that, and campaigns, and got a whole new set of leadership. And we had some strong veteran agents that really stepped up, and we got a bunch of new agents that were just full of fire. And yeah, so 5 years later brings us to today. Right here on BluePrint Legacy and Launch, right? But yeah, so that's the skinny of my story here at Globe.
Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
what about you?
My name's Ariel Anderson. Birds are getting crazy.
No, I think they're building a nest right there.
Oh no.
For those of you watching at home, this is La Casa, so we are surrounded by birds. So if we get distracted or attacked, you know what it is.
Yeah, but I was born in the Bay Area of California, but I grew up in Central Valley, so small little farm town that had absolutely nothing going on. I definitely grew up with like PE. When the wind would blow, it'd smell like cows.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Hey, it prepared me well for what I ended up doing later on. But I moved out of the Hodunk town and up to Sacramento. I went to school for death care, so I wanted to be a coroner for a while.
Death care? Yes, that is an industry, in case all
That
you
is
were
an
curious.
industry. So I worked at a funeral home and cemetery, and I went to school for it as well. And I wanted to be a coroner, so I was going to school for a lot more. I was going to school for a doctorate in neuroscience with a focus.
What do
in
you think the
microtoxicology.
percentage of people when they're growing up that want to be a coroner are?
It's very slim.
Going with less than
I
one.
think that goes probably pretty big for the whole death care industry.
Yeah.
Hospice, cemeteries, funeral homes, all that's coroners. I can't imagine it's an industry that a lot of people want to grow up in, but it's something that's always interested me.
Did it impact your dating life when your dates found out you wanted to be in the
definitely
death
did.
industry? Did that possibly?
Less so when I wanted to be in it, but more so when I was in it.
Got it.
Because
The coming home stories were probably a little raw.
Well, it's funny because one of the first questions people ask you when they're like getting to know you is like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" And it's like, "Well, I work with dead people."
Yeah.
So I worked on the cemetery side of things my last few years there, and my job was kind of doing all the background stuff. I had a shoulder injury when I was moving a body down the stairs, and so that really very quickly stopped removals. Things
You
like
had an
that.
injury moving a body down the stairs. What, you just throw those things over your shoulder when you're?
No, I was on one side of the cot, and my partner had let go of the cot.
Yeah.
And the person started tilting.
Oh no.
So it's definitely, I got injured from correcting. I hooked my arm under, grabbed the other side, kind of went like this. But it's definitely an injury I would take again. And then the pandemic happened. I signed my contract that got me to keep my job. They got rid of everyone who didn't have a certain type of contract the day before the pandemic. So I signed it March 16th. We went on, everyone went home March 17th. And I worked there for the whole first year. And after the first year of that, I was ready to move on and move into something totally different. So that's what brought me to insurance. You know, I started with a different company, brokerage, and they were fine. I had to pay for leads, which was awful, and they were terrible leads. They were really garbage, and they were expensive. And it was more of the culture that bothered me. That was very, almost like when people describe like sales being full of sharks.
Yep.
Very much so like that. I asked to shadow someone's presentation when I first started because I didn't know what the presentation looked like. And my manager legitimately told me, "We don't do that here." I was like, "Well, how am I supposed to know what I'm doing?" And she was like, "Figure it out." So I
You mean
did.
there's no blueprint?
There is no blueprint. They had some modules. I, to this day, could not tell you what our presentation slides looked
Right.
like. Our script referenced it. No one ever gave them to me. I asked for them. Nobody I asked had them, so kind of gave up quickly on that. And then I was ready to move on. I did all right there, but I could definitely tell it was kind of capped in growth. So when I was kind of looking for a new place to hang my hat, it was looking for training. That you guys do offer training. You have that foundation.
That we offer.
Yeah, we offer. That you guys have that foundation, and that there was room for not only my growth and development, but I knew I wanted management, and I knew I wanted to be like an agency owner one day. So having that for people that are coming up from under me as well.
Another thing you brought up that's super interesting to me. So when I was telling you my background, I kind of did my professional. So the events, right? So we talk a lot in the organization. I think probably every sales and, to be honest, most industries talk about like the E plus R equals O mentality, right? Like event plus how you respond can influence, if not dictate, the outcome. And when I started, this is 2011, the event was the recession of 2008. When that happened, like that was in full swing. When me and my wife, Julie, girlfriend at the time, she was a receptionist at a urogynecology office. I was going GameStop, Home Depot, college education, all that kind of, but there was just no jobs. You were doing retail, you'd be there for 90 days. So for me, that event, like not being able to find a job, I stumbled into this, which is, I always just find interesting. It's like it was a random series of events, but needed to make money. I make the joke, Julie's dad is very successful. So typically, successful guys don't really want their daughters dating, you know, pro dudes, go figures, you know. So I was like, I don't think GameStop was really, I don't think, yeah, Home Depot's got some great, no disrespect to, you know, work in retail. It's just, I don't think it's a long-term commitment in most circumstances. But, you know, and now you talk about with you, like the event was COVID. It is interesting how, I know it's not like to the T, but I'm 38. In my experience, it seems like there's economic resets or fluctuations every 10 years. And then for sure, you could mark down, you know, pandemics pretty much every 2, whether it's like Zika or COVID or H1N1, Ebola. It's like it's every 2 years you got something. The magnitude of those events, who knows? But it is interesting, now that we've both talked about the past a little bit, the reason we are where we are is due to events outside of our control and how we respond to those. And I think that's something, there might be something deep about life there, just like the ideas like, man, you're not as control. Like, what would be a good analogy? So my daughter's super into Lilo and Stitch. Like, so we just had my daughter's birthday, and like, you know, we had Lilo and Stitch theme, and we talked about surfing. And it's like, one thing about surfing is the key is you gotta like ride with the wave, don't fight it. You gotta catch it and learn how to navigate it. And I think when you are designing a blueprint for whatever it is you wanna do, I think you have to accept like a lot of external factors actually dictate your course. And it's whether you know how to like actually ride the ocean with that and still get reset onto your destination is important. Because with both of our stories, I didn't even know what a market reset was when I graduated college. And I was like, what does this like mortgage crisis even mean? I think for all of us, you would agree with me, like COVID and the lockdown and this was like never before happened in human history, if I'm not mistaken, a lockdown like that. I could be wrong. But it's like, yeah, those events triggered, you know, both of our futures, which is interesting to think about, you know? Yeah, I have a question for you. Do you feel like, you know, it seems like these life events, you know, cause people to, as you put it, pivot, right? During those times, when you pivot to something, do you think the odds of whatever you pivot to, especially like in this circumstance, like it's worked out for us, right? When you pivot and it does kind of work out, do you feel like that might be a reflection of the career or the industry, its resilience to when these events happen? So what I mean by that, like when we talk about the organization, or just the industry in general, like whenever I talk to job seekers, they're always paid attention to like the job. They're not, I mean, they're aware like loosely though about like the industry moves. So it's like something I've kind of thought about. It's like why, you know, the irony that insurance is like a level of protection for the unknown, right? Spreading the fear of loss over many people. It's like, it's interesting that we both found the opportunity during times of strife, like a pandemic or economic whatever. I feel like that's almost a representation of how that industry does during those times. The fact that during when everything else was kind of all up in the air, things were being shut down, everybody else was struggling, we founded an industry that during those times, when times are good, obviously these companies do great, but even when times are bad or like unpredictable, the company and the industry still do great. So my question to you would be, do you think there's something there is when these major events happen, because there's going to be another market reset, there's going to be more pandemics, these things are going to happen like clockwork. Is there something with the industry that people can look at to have some faith in, like these external factors long term won't impact my ability to look after my family and launch, you know, my blueprint for legacy, as we put in the title, right? Do you think there's something there?
I absolutely do, but I also think that
does my question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, I 100% agree. I definitely do think there is something there. I also think that part of that something that's there is the people who are willing to like put their nose to the grindstone, as I think the phrase, and really put in that work during those stressful times and don't let it crumble, also tend to probably come to industries
resilience
like
factor
this.
Kind of, a little bit of a resilience factor.
And really throw in as much hard work as they need to be successful. Because if you look at everyone who is successful in this industry and who is striving in this industry long term, more than just a month or two, they're hard workers, every single one of them.
That's a good point. It's like one thing I think about is, you know, both of us do a lot of interviews, things like this, and people, they get nervous about performance paid and perform like merit-based promotions. Like they're usually looking for it, but their nerves are a little uneasy about it. And it's like, I just think it's like, yeah, but the alternative, it's like, yeah, there's that risk, but typically we all know via Hollywood or whatever we want, big risk equals big reward if it comes off right. Another thing would be is like, I would argue, like, yeah, it may be a little riskier or scarier up front, but dude, no matter what, when the next pandemic hits or the next market reset, like, you're going to be good.
You'll
like
be
the industry
solid,
will
yeah.
be. So it's like there's also this idea of like, is doing what's safe actually safe, or is it safe right now, maybe for the next 4 years? What happens after that? So it's like, I'm biased, obviously, because I've been in the industry for 15 years now, but I started during the economic crisis of 2008. This is back in 2010 when I started. And I was 24. I made 6 figures my first 9 months. And then it's like during COVID, I bought an agency and blew it up. And it's like, you found the opportunity then. It's like, I think that's an important fact is like, you know, if you're around our ages or even like 40s and 50s, you are going to go through numerous market resets or corrections or recessions or whatever you want to label them as. You're going to go through multiple pandemics. And I think it's important, like if you're going to try and build a legacy, a lot of what this cast is going to be about, right? If you really want to build a legacy, you have to have some kind of foresight of possible, like, as we talk about, external factors that are going to kind of, you know, judge the course where you're going to go. So I think, yeah, in an industry where I don't think a lot of people are, you know, 3rd and 4th grade when they're like, you know, I want to be a lawyer and a doctor.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of
like,
kids saying, you know, insurance sales sounds pretty good.
Probably
like, I don't
just as
think,
many as death care.
just as many as death care, exactly.
I think they're both kind of industries you fall
exactly.
into.
They are ones you kind of fall into, but it's like, I think it is important. You know, it is interesting with my experience just seeing what happens during economic strifes to all these industries. And it's like, yeah, our industry that we've fallen into, it seems very resilient to these factors that tend to repeat themselves. I think it's important.
Definitely.
You know?
So let me ask you this. When you were first getting into this and going into something that's so performance-based,
Yep.
I assume you had a conversation with Julie at the beginning of
Yes.
it. What was her opinion?
So, I don't know why this has always stuck out to me, but it was either my mother. Someone told me whoever you decide to marry, you got to be careful of because it will dictate 99% of your misery, 99% of your happiness kind of thing, which is obviously a very, 99% is a very made up number. But the sentiment being like, you know, your support structure that's going to be there. Mm-hmm. So my wife has always been my biggest cheerleader. And beyond just, she lets me make good decisions. She doesn't let me make terrible decisions, but she'll let me make bad decisions for the lesson. Like, so when we were going into this, she could tell I was very unhappy not being able to provide. And like, dude, when we graduated, we lived in it was actually her brother basically sublet a house to us. Very expensive. It made we had to move back in with her parents. Okay.
Wow.
Which actually I loved because we had like our whole wing in this multimillionaire. She hated it, obviously, but you know, and to be real, like she could tell I had a problem with her just like basically carrying us and me not doing much. But also, I think when you're in your young 20s, it's a very confusing time. You're trying to establish who you are. You're starting to kind of maybe not lose, but your life is pivoting a little bit where it's like, yeah, you're very friend-based, very social-based. It's like now you got to kind of focus inward on you, on what you're going to become and establish so you can actually start, you know, cultivating the rest of your life. And I think Julie also saw I got very upset about how I wasn't like creating anything. I wasn't like, I just wasn't really doing anything, dude. So when we talked about it, what Julie usually does when I'm making decisions, it's like, so what's the alternative? So if you don't do this, like, wait, what are the other options? Like, what else would you consider? And since the recession was going on, it's like, not really anything. And then she's like, okay, well then let's give it a shot. That was the easy part. When we actually started getting used to how frequently I was gone, because we were traveling to houses and all like I talked about, that's when her support for me really shined. When, you know, there were times where she would see me leave at like 3 a.m. and not be back till 3 days later at like 2 a.m., you know? So it was a lot. That's when it really shined. But like the decision to make it, young 20s, you know, I think it's a great time to test things out, figure out what you don't like in more than what you like, because, you know, I think that can be a strong building process there where it's like, okay, I know for a fact I don't like this and I don't want to avoid that. But I love talking to people. I do like closing deals. It's an endorphin rush for me that just doesn't go away. You know, at the end of the day, like I'm not selling cars or cell phones. Like we'll talk about this, I'm assuming, in future casts and all that. But, you know, I lost my dad when we were a little younger. We didn't have insurance, so I was passionate about the product. So, yeah, Julie was very supportive. And to be honest, I think she was also just like, man, start making some freaking money. Like, I think she was kind of just like, yeah, is it pay? Okay, go. But yeah, so Julie, she was supportive and she was into it, but we were at a stage where it's like, let's just figure out like what we could do and what we could get at, because once again, the market, that recession of 2008 was like limited options. So yeah, she was very supportive, always has been. You know,
It paid off.
but yes, it was. She's always been a cheerleader of mine, and I love her for that.
That's awesome.
You know? What about your spouse?
Alex.
Yeah.
So my husband's name is Alex. He actually is this kind of very similar. He's always been my cheerleader. It's very much so, I feel like, and I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I feel like a lot of our relationship is don't let the captain panic because the ship's going down kind of thing. And I remember when I hated my job when I worked at the cemetery towards the end of it. It was just like every day I was just like, oh,
See, I was kind of similar. I think you're going down a road. Julie could tell I hated working retail and all this stuff. I just hated it. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I decided to leave, I did a few different things, tried a few different careers, very 20s. We met when I was 25, so I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I went to make the pivot into insurance, initially he was like, I don't know. His parents worked for Primerica back in the day.
Yeah.
And the housing market crashed. Somewhere around that time is when they lost everything. So he was very hesitant because he had all of that anxiety from when he was younger. I mean, they went through a lot at the time. And he was a little unsure, but he's like, you know what? If this is what you want to do, he's like, I know you'll be good at it. You'll be good at whatever you do. It doesn't matter what you're doing. He's like, you always try your best and you always do very well, no matter the industry. He's like, you might get bored, but he's like, you always do really well in Excel. And he goes, if this is what you want to do, then let's do it.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up something that for younger people, when once again, like I was talking about, your 20s can be so subjective to the environment and emotions and all that. I think when you're like looking for a career move, so many people are just obsessed with like the title of want to be a CPA, I want to be a whatever. It's like majority of people don't go into the fields that they saw themselves going into, since the beginning of school or whatever it is like, dude, the occupation you're getting into, can you apply the things that you feel you enjoy and are your strengths? I never knew I wanted to do sales or be in insurance, but it's like I knew I loved talking to people. I knew I could usually carry conversations. I knew I wanted to make money, so it's like, if you're financially motivated, you do have to be open to separation from salary and hourly mentality, right? So you can actually max it out. We talk a lot about this in the organization, but it's like kind of a requirement nowadays that you got to make six figures if you want to. Like, it's not the early 2000s where six figures like this, like, yeah, I wish I could. It's like, you kind of have to now.
Yeah,
so
especially in California.
Well, no, but like in Texas and Colorado, like a lot of the states we operate in is like, yeah, dude, if you're not making six figures, you're going broke. Or it's like, you're struggling with cash, you just have a little nicer things. Like, I have a little nicer car, a little nicer place, but I'm still struggling.
But you're still paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of people, I think it's important is like, yeah, you may not always fall into the positions you saw yourself jumping into, but pay attention to the skill sets needed to be successful in that industry. And if it lines up with the skill sets you think you have or that you want to develop, I mean, typically you'll fall in love with the job because it's making you exercise this. So I think that's why it did so well for me. Like, once again, building relationships. I do like close. I never thought I'd be like a closer, but it's like I do enjoy it. It's not only the satisfaction of endorphins, but it's also like, dude, I think a good salesperson tries to solve problems. Like, because they wouldn't waste their time with people unless they could solve the problem, because then it's probably not a long-term client if you're just shoving stuff down their throat, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing to bring up. But being that we're talking about what we do, we should probably explain the company we work for and exactly what we do, right? So maybe you want to kind of why don't you give your little synopsis of who we are and what we do, and then I'll give mine.
So we both work for, I think it's on the cup. Yep.
Oh.
Globe Life American Income Division. It's on our cup. The McQuade organization specifically. I am
The Meta.
The Meta. I am a master general agent with the company, so I am the third tier of management.
Yeah, entry-level senior leadership for sure.
Yeah, but they're right above me would be a regional, and then yourself. And there's, like I said, I'm the third tier, so there's a couple levels below. I just became an MGA in the beginning of April, so I'm very new at it still. It's just a couple months, and I've been with the company now for almost 2.5 years, almost.
Very good.
Yeah. And what about yourself?
So Globe Life, American Income Division. So I'm going to give a more business answer, I guess. So
I assumed.
You know, American Income Division is one of 7 subsidiaries that make up the Globe conglomerate, right? We typically handle your middle, low income, blue collar contracts, unionized work, right? Unions, associations. That was our heritage. That's how we penetrate markets. Now it's like we're just individual based for working class America, which is a massive expanding demographic.
Yeah.
So we basically mass produce affordable policies for the people that need it most. Okay, so it's like it's a little bit of a niche, and it gives us some certain advantages, but that's what we do on a daily basis. And there's really 2 sides to the business. It's whether you want to have the independence of just sales. It's very just work your schedule, get everything you can out of it. Then what Ariel's alluding to and the path that I took as well, there's also leadership, where yes, you sell services and products, but you also develop IP, some intellectual property on training systems and sales systems, and there's a lot of clerical stuff that goes into it too. But those are really the 2 avenues. But more specifically, Globe Life been around for, what is it now, like 126 years?
Something like
yeah,
that.
it's like 100.
I think American Income itself.
American Income's 1951 or 4, so you're looking at like 76 years or whatever. Globe itself's been around for over a century, like 120 something years. S&P traded, massive company. I think we have the most policy owners out of any company in North America now. So it's a massive company. And I think why it's important for those listening or future listeners, because once again, we talk about this when we're talking to new people, is, with Globe Life, one of some of the advantages we got, health and life insurance has become the 2nd largest industry in the world. Okay, it was number 1 in 2020, 21, now 22, 23, 24, it's been the 2nd right petroleum and gas, right below them. So it's one of the biggest industries in the world. I think it's like 9% of total global economic activity is life and health insurance now. It's huge, okay?
That's crazy.
Then we have Globe, which has the most policy owners in the entire nation. So you're in the 2nd largest, let's just say largest. It's the largest industry in the world, 2nd. But then you're with Globe, which has the most policy owners in the United States. Then you got American Income, which if I'm not mistaken, is about it's like over 50% of Globe's total revenue. Like they're a massive chunk. Out of 7 subsidiaries, we're like half of the cash brought in. And then you work with our organization. And I think why it's important, the organizations you fall into, because they're all very good. Like all owners, everyone's got their pros and cons, but I would say pros massively outweigh cons with every agency owner. Yep. But there's a big collection of us new SGA owners coming up. Our careers are not landing, they're not plateauing. Like I would argue my career's taking off. A lot of us, I've only been an SGA for 5 years, or in my 5th year. So I think that's another thing that's important is the industry, the company, we're not in like a plateau phase. Mm-hmm. It's like it's a big takeoff phase, hence the launch in our title, right? So just for, listeners and whatever future viewers, is it's important to understand like law of the lid is a real thing, and you got to look at industries and organizations and companies that are not in like a plateau phase, like they're in an aggressive growth phase, which is what I think we are.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I would say we offer some of the best products in the world for the most important demographic in the nation, and we do that by basically having stellar trained development of leaders to help us scale those models. So once again, unionized and associated workers can be well taken care of on potentially the worst day of their family's life.
Absolutely.
I think it's, we don't publicly market or advertise, right? So there's going to be just that natural, you got to be a word of a mouth industry, profession, whatever, but also just bring the money into it. At Globe, American Income specifically, we do lifetime renewals. So a little known fact, I think it's becoming more and more commonly known nowadays, but when you write policies, yes, you get commissions, bonuses, these things up front. They usually advance you on the policy, but it's like those policies then enter renewal status at some point. Typically, it's at like the 13th month that policy's been on the books. It heavily incentivizes you. These are customers, I would say clients for life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, you're developing relationships. You got to care about your people because they're always paying you. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of the model that I'm not saying this was by design, but I think it's one reason I do love the industry and working with people that are trying to create careers in the industry, because there's like that financial tie to your clients to always look after them. Mm-hmm. You always have to have a sense of empathy at some level, or just care for the people you represent, just because they are paying you, dude. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a good thing to bring up.
So would you say that's one of the biggest reasons that you have stuck through hard times with the company? Because every career you have is going to have some ebb and flows. You're going to have high points. You're going to have, pits of despair.
Yep.
So would you say those are the biggest things that have kind of carried you through that pit of despair?
Such a great but loaded question. The pits of despair. Sounds like some video game level. You know me pretty well. I don't think any company would pay me as much as this company does. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm going to know, you know what I mean?
But even earlier in your career, before you weren't, all this.
To give well, I'm always going to give as honest answers as I can, but off the top of my head, to give an honest answer to that, I would say, especially when we were driving to appointments and when you had a rough day and you were like 6 hours from home, like, it was tough, dude. And also, like, I don't think it's a secret, like, if you're training people and I'm driving two people out and, like, if you don't really mesh and you're having a rough time, it's really hard. I think for me, it was just, a lot of it was environment based. Like, I had struggles, but my brother Ian, he went to Colorado School of Mines for structural engineering in Toronto. He did like this concrete and all this, highly educated, should be uber successful, and he is in his own right. But it was like watching him with the struggles he has, like, man, he's experiencing it too, and he's got like this top education. My brother James became an attorney. Watching him, it's like, man, he has bigger frustrations than I would ever want to deal with. So I think it was like, yeah, it sucks, but it's the same thing that pretty much everyone else is going through, and I'm making more here. And I also would argue in that environment, like, while I was dealing with some of this hard stuff that I feel like anyone establishing themselves in any major industry or career choice is doing, my career kept growing. And it was at my pace, and my paychecks kept getting bigger, and my renewals kept getting bigger, and my book of business kept getting bigger, and my teams kept, so it was like, there was that consistent growth. And it's like, a lot of things in life, it's like up and down, and like the ebbs and flows, but my ebbs and flows were always trending upwards. Like, when I was looking at the environment around me, when people were experiencing ebbs and flows, it was like a flat line ebbs and flows. Like, it was literally good, bad, good, bad. Mine was like, good, bad, but it was like good, getting better, good, getting better, good, getting better. You know what I mean? So the lows weren't as low and the highs were definitely very high. So I don't know. I think it was definitely like the customers, and it was, you obviously, when you work with people long term, you develop relationships that were always great. Something I've learned, you typically don't finish the races with the people you start with. So those are always fleeting. They come and go. But for me, I think it was most the environment around me. I was watching. And once again, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you're watching everyone around your age going through the same struggle, right? And it seemed like our struggles were similar, but mine still was like, my life was progressing. While others, I don't know if I really saw that progress. So that was one of the reasons I really stuck with it. I was like, yeah, man, we're all dealing with life. We're all trying to figure this thing out. But mine is progressively like enhancing, and I feel like as a character, my character was developing stronger. And like, one thing I noticed with me, and this is probably like 2 or 3 years into this, it really started to stand out. My friends, my family, there was this victim thing where it's like the world is happening to me. The world has something against me. Like, I am the protagonist of this story, and this kind of built into me is like that narrative. It's like I wasn't, adversity didn't bother me anymore. I wasn't victimizing myself anymore. I think my character as a person got stronger. And I think, and this is I know I'm going down roads we don't really need to, but I think when you develop a strong character, especially young in life, and just character, I mean, like, you're resilient, you come through on your word, you're honest more than I think everyone could be dishonest, right? But it's like, you're honest more than you're dishonest. You do your give a shit meter is turned up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, that's good character. I think that turns you into a good parent, a good spouse, a good partner, a good friend. I think it makes all these impacts. So I was seeing like other people, the environments around me, where it's like they were coming vindictive and, life is unfair and it only happens to me, and this kind of attitude. And that stuff was kind of like leaving my mentality. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like the way I think. So it feels less selfish, to be real. And also, I don't know. We talk a lot about stress management in the career, right?
Yeah.
I feel like life is stressful enough for you to add that layer of stress where you're consistently like beating yourself up and questioning your, so if you're in an environment where you don't really do that as much, I think it's pretty productive. So yeah, long answer. for a short question, but I feel like mine heavily was because the environment. I enjoyed what I was doing more often than I didn't. I was making more money than I thought I was. I don't want to say this because it's very disrespectful to myself, but I don't feel like I was worth how much I was making at that time. It was just a representation of what we built, which was great. And like I said, like just watching everybody else, the development in my character and what was happening to me as a person, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick this thing out.
Okay.
Come hell or high water, you know what I mean?
You're like, I'm
no matter
making
what
it
bad
work.
stuff happens, yeah. And I think that's powerful, right? You know, the trees that have deep roots don't fear the wind, right? So I also started seeing, like, you've heard me talk about this a lot, like, for those of you that don't know, I love video games, right? And I learned an early lesson because my siblings always, not just my siblings, but just siblings and people in circles, they complained about having to restart all the time. And typically you're restarting why? Because you're quitting over and over, right? So I kind of learned, like, the more often I quit and don't commit to something, I'm not going to make it as far, right? Because, like, you know, I have a certain amount of time in my life. The more often I have to keep resetting, I'm starting from the beginning. It's like the earlier I plant my roots and just kind of, it's like probably at some point my life will be progressively way further because I didn't, you know, restart at 35 or restart at 40 or do anything, as I committed since age 24. So I think that was it as well. So I watched so many people, their lives just pivot aggressively due to restarting. I was like, I want to see this thing out because I don't want to have to restart like 50 times.
Yeah.
It's probably why, you know, I met Julie across from that beer pong table, you know, in college, and I was like, that's the one, dude. I don't want to be on the market anymore. That's the one, you know?
Yeah.
Make the decision early and run with it. So yeah, I think it was more of a product of the environment around me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely.
So, I mean, you're 2.5 years in now, so I mean,
I've definitely, I mean, I can definitely attest to a time where I think I learned kind of through the pandemic and working that first year of it that kind of a little bit about what you're talking about, where it feels like the universe is against you. Everything's working against you, and that's kind of paranoia in a sense, right? Well, the opposite of that is pronoia, where the universe is working in your
What's the
favor.
word?
Pronoia.
I've actually never even heard of that. I'm embarrassed to admit that. I've never even heard of that.
It's okay. It's not
That tells you what goes through my head. Paranoia is the only thing I know. You know what I mean?
Like, I only know that one.
I only know that.
But the opposite of that is pronoia, where the universe is working in your favor. You might have seen, and the listeners might have seen, it went viral on TikTok a couple of years ago of the like lucky girl mentality, where you wake up every morning, you tell yourself, I'm lucky. This is my lucky day. Everything's going to go in my favor. And it's not going to at first.
Yeah.
But it does start making that shift because in your mind, you're telling yourself first thing in the morning,
Yep.
this is my day. It's going to be a
You view it
great
through a positive
day.
lens first before a negative.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I kind of learned about pronoia and making that pivot during that first year.
Right.
Me and my husband, we were in transition between our last home and our home we're in now. We lived with his grandma in a 300 square foot little room.
Cozy. Cozy.
Very cozy with
Yeah.
our 4 dogs
Yeah.
and our 4 large dogs at that.
They took up like 200 square feet just then.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it was hot. There was no AC. It was old. The carpet, you couldn't vacuum at all because if you vacuumed it, it just deteriorated.
Ugh.
Oh, it was
Ugh.
terrible. We replaced the floor while we were in there, but we lived in that. I worked at the funeral home the first year. It was so stressful. I was commuting an hour away on top of that. So I was there from like, I would leave my house like 6. I wouldn't get back to like 11. And then I'd do it again the next day. And then you work weekends and stuff like that because we were just so busy. And then my husband owned a company at the time and it was doing well, but I don't think he liked it. I don't think he liked the industry essentially. And so there was a lot of stresses that came with that. And so, especially when I decided to make a career pivot, it was a stressful time. And I was really looking into this kind of pronoia thing and the mentality that came along with it and really started enacting that. Today's gonna be a good day. Today's gonna be a great day. I don't care what goes wrong today because at the end of the day, something happened right. And I think that's something that really I leaned on when I did have, so I've been with the industry, with this company for 2.5 years. I've had 2 miscarriages during it. One right after starting, which was a rough way to start. But another one.
We call that the tragedy of AIL.
Yeah.
Actually, don't let that scare everybody. But like when you start for something terrible in your life happens every time.
Well, and I find that anytime you're making like major life changes, something goes wrong.
Life tests you.
Oh yeah, it likes to sprinkle a spice in your life. And it's like, ha. But the following year, this is the beginning of last year, we were pregnant again. And, we made it into the second trimester, so we're kind of deep in it. We let everyone know we thought we were safe. We were not. And then, so we ended up miscarrying at the end of January, beginning of February. We have March Madness in March. So we were kind of going through that, and I come back early. I was under a manager I didn't mesh well with, and so I had to kind of come back a little bit earlier than I was ready for. Just for the sake of holding down the fort. I had like 4 people quit in 1 weekend. So I came back, and man, rebuilding momentum sucks. It sucks.
It was a sticky process for sure.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
So I think really focusing on that pronoia of like, man, this sucks, but this is also the worst it's gonna get.
Yes.
It's only gonna get better. And I know I can, if there's one thing I can do, I can give a shit and I can outwork people. And so that's what I did. And going into that, we had a loss in our family. We had another loss. And then March Madness starts, and 2 days freaking later, all my dogs disappear. They got out of the fence. I have a husky. It happens.
What did you do in your past life? You know what I mean? Something.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. And so my dogs disappeared. They're gone for 6 weeks.
Dang.
Yeah. And they're big, chunky dogs. At least my husky, he's a chunky boy.
Yeah.
He's a very visible. He's a chunky white husky.
Yeah.
Nobody had seen him. It was like as if they disappeared right away. We found out 6 weeks later, one of my neighbors had actually taken them. When they had gone out, they scooped him up right away, fattened him up, gave him all kinds of human food, which he's still on the diet for. Yeah. But during that time, I really hunkered down. Obviously, looked for them. We put flyers in every single mailbox for every surrounding 6 neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It was so far. Oh my God, I was getting so many prank calls from people because we had it posted on every freaking intersection. People are awful.
Yeah. Not all of them.
Not all of them, but just like, man, why do you guys suck? But at the end of the day, I really had that pronoia of like, we're going into March Madness. I'm gonna clean house. Come hell or high water, it's happening.
I'm pissed. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of attitude.
I'm going to take someone down. And so I worked really hard. I rebuilt my team during February and into March. I made a whole bunch of little competitions with my team, really got them amped. I think that's really where like my team's culture of like our love language is shit talking kind of started. And I won March Madness. I was literally up the last night of it until like 2 a.m. writing applications. Poor Tyler thought he was safe at 9 p.m. when cutoff was the next morning. He was 900 ALP ahead, and I was like, there's no way. I wrote 5,400 in the middle of the night.
There you go.
And I remember I sat with a bunch of airport workers, and they were airport workers almost always have 2 jobs. Yeah. Most of them work at the county or the state during the day, then they go work at the airport at night so they can have the travel benefits. And they don't have anything to do in between flights. So I called up my husband. I was like, hey, I know none of your coworkers have sat with anyone, and I know they're all union members. I called up home office, found out how much their union certs were for like earlier in the day. And I sat with all of them on Zoom. I had him bring his computer to work.
Yeah, there you go.
Sat with all of them on Zoom and just boom, 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 boom. And the one flight, Dallas 456, that is freaking late, every day. That flight, during the whole time my husband worked there, that flight had never been on time, much less early. Showed up an hour and a half early.
Ah, man.
And I was like, oh, this means I'm not going to be done until at least 2.
Yeah.
I was like, and at that point, I hadn't known if any of them were going to be even sales at that point. I was like, oh, what do I do? And I talked to my husband, and he gives me the Mr. Incredible speech from Incredibles 2, where it's like, you grab thunder and eat lightning or something like that. And he's like, you could do this. He's like, you're already up. You're already going to be tired tomorrow. And he goes, just stick it through. See what happens. Twiddle your thumbs on Zoom. Wait for them to come back to the computer. And then we'll see what happens. And sure enough, it was worth it. And I won. And it kind of made all of the nonsense worth it. And my dogs ended up.
We call that perseverance, gang. Winning that comp. That's what I'm talking about.
And I remember the next morning, Tyler was like, how the hell did you write that in the middle of the night.
2
We were
a.m., baby.
done.
Yeah, 2 a.m. That's how I did it.
But yeah, it was, my dogs ended up being found shortly after that. They were found.
You passed the test, the universe test. You
The
passed
universe was like, okay,
it. You
here
pass.
you go.
You pass.
We'll give you back
I'll throw
your
you some more
dogs.
obstacles later. I'll
Maybe
give
a
you
little
break.
bit of diabetes with them. They were both plump.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended up making it through, and it's been on the up and up since. But a lot of what carried through that is spite. I was going to make something happen. Stubbornness, definitely, and that pronoia for sure that, you know, something good's gonna happen today. All this bad already happened. It's gotta happen now.
Pendulum's got to swing back eventually.
Yeah, it has to. And so I think that's very much so what got me through that and kind of on the up and up.
Yeah, you know, when you have events like that, I feel like it's when you have enough of them, you kind of learn. You remember the success anyway. Like a lot of the pain, like those pains of growth and all that, it's like, yeah, you remember them a little bit, but you don't remember, like, I think a lot of memories, it's kind of how you felt about that memory, right? And it's like with some of these stories, like I have some with contests, I'd have to dig through my treasure trove of years of contests, but there were a lot of times where, like, dude, even the bad stuff I went through to win, like, I don't even remember how that made me feel. I just remember that's when I went through it, but the reason it was worth it is because I won the competition. I always remember that. So I think a lot of those times, like learning that perseverance is like, yeah, dude, is all the bad stuff. It's interesting. It could be dogs missing whatever, but now you have a great story where it turned out success and everything turned around. Like it's going to eventually turn around. It's like what you did with that time, E + R = O. It's going to dictate how you remember that.
And I think that leads very much so into kind of what we were talking about earlier, where when there's these major crises happening in the world, that, you know, people tend to come to this industry, and so long as you can work hard and have that perseverance, like you'll make it through. I
think it's work hard, but you know, we talk about this, people born, like raised with religion, all this, like just faith in it will turn out, and you can, and I think that's actually a lot rarer than people, hence why a lot of people depend on higher powers and stuff for that backing of faith. I'm not saying that's why they do, but I think that is one of the reasons. So I think with your story, and like it's similar to me, is I had faith in me. Like I know I can do this. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, but I know I can do it. And I think there is like that, we talk about this a lot, but to have that kind of confidence and faith, believe it or not, it's not something, you can wake up in the morning and say things to help build that momentum. But I guarantee if I look at your real confidence or perseverance after that event, it skyrocketed because you know you can, because you just did it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a great point. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, definitely. I think that can be a big difference for a lot of people, is kind of making it through that and not letting it crush you.
Yeah.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit about what a typical day looks like for you.
A typical day?
Yeah, like an average day.
They don't exist. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Let me rephrase that.
Dude, I work in, you know, I'm an owner. I'm a business owner. So it's I got this, and I have 2 other businesses I help run. You know, I got young kids, so we're summer vacation right now. Sometimes they're in school. So I think that's one thing I love about the job. Now, I have like a schedule that I do at work with certain meetings, but it's few and far between. So a typical day is a little tough. It just depends. What's going on at the time, what's going on with like my support structure's lives. And I love working and having a career where everything's kind of meshed together. So I think it's, you know, a lot of people talk about work-life balance. I don't fully understand. I don't know if my perspective is I don't think that exists, and I don't think it's like, I don't think anything can really be in balance like that, but I feel like I have harmony. So, you know, harmony with my work and my life. So like, you know, Mondays, we got like our agency meetings in the morning, got to pump everybody up. I got a few meetings in the morning. Sometimes I'll book some one-on-ones with people, some leadership meetings later in the day. But in between that time, I'm hanging out with my wife, my kids, you know, walking the dogs. So the schedule's all over the place. But so I don't have typical days. And I think that's what I love about my life. There's routine and there's like kind of block scheduling, but what I do in between those blocks is subjective to, like I said, what do we got going on that month? What contests are coming up? What do I got going on with the kids? But for me, I like that variety. I like being able to be spontaneous. I like, you know, not feeling shackled to like, you know, I think that's healthy for a human brain. So yeah, I would answer that question with, I don't think I have typical days, and that's why I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, is I have routines for sure that like cross the T's and dot the I's for running the businesses, right? You know, for sure. But yeah, man, I don't have like typical days, but I have, you know, typical things I do every day. Like I will exercise every day. I will definitely have some time with my kids every day. Obviously time with my wife every night. That sounded inappropriate. But yeah, I mean that too. Okay. Yeah, and like I have a series of meetings that get run, but it's like, yeah, I think that's one thing that's kind of cool, especially when you've made it pretty far into it, is there's not like this heavy regimented, like this is what I do every single day, which I think is important. But I would say probably, you know, 40% of my week is different every time.
Yeah. Hey, that's good though.
Yeah. What about you? Give me a typical day.
Typical day. I mean, I definitely, you know, do have like a morning routine, stuff like that, kind of make sure I wake up. I have insomnia, so, and I am not a morning person by any means, comically so. My husband is the polar opposite.
Yeah.
One alarm ring, bright-eyed and bushy tailed. I'm
not into that. Yeah, I'm not into that.
He always laughs at me because he thinks I'm such a grump, and I'm like, can you go literally anywhere else with that for like 10 minutes? But, you know, I'll get ready for the day, things like that. I really try to make my mornings as easy as I can by doing prep stuff at night. But then just go to work, and I kind of think, you know, we have our call sessions, stuff like that.
Once again, you have like the certain things that are always routine, right?
Yeah, like the normal times you're working with clients for sure. But I think when it comes to like a regimented like thing, like there's meetings, obviously the Monday meeting, the Thursday meeting, things like that, manager meetings, those will always be the same. But I think when it comes to even how the call sessions run, it's different every day, and it's good it's different. And that's one of the things I really love about how we work is I do have a lot of freedoms to create like little competitions, games, stuff like that, music, that we do in our call sessions all the time. I mean, we were just playing dodgeball, for instance, virtually, and we play all kinds of different games. We have round robin we do as well, and it's just a lot of fun being able to create that. And a lot of the ways I create that is I ask someone, you know, what's your favorite game you played growing up, and then I make a game off that.
Well, once again, I think that feeds into the variety, right? I think that's important.
And I think if you played the same game over and over again, it would be ungodly boring.
Yeah, you
same
lose interest.
thing if you listen to the same music playlist over and over again.
You lose interest.
Yeah, there's only so much 90s rock I could listen
Hoobastank.
to.
There's only so much Hoobastank you can take, right?
Right.
I
think that's one of the things that's kind of great about working virtually, and what we do is we can mix it up.
And like the W-9 contract.
Yeah.
You know, you got W-2, W-9, layman like they would call 1099. It's like, yeah, it's the difference in mentalities there. So results-based, like I like in leadership too, like I don't need to be on every phone session, all that. It's like as long as the results are there, I can have some of that freedom in my life. No one owns me. But also the obviously the consequence of that is like whatever you don't do, you'll have to eat that up too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think with both of us, we have like our routines, but a typical day you can still have the beauty and of like randomness and variety, which I think is important to life, you know, so it doesn't get stale.
Yeah, so it doesn't get stale, exactly. And I think that's something I've experienced so many times. That's so many jobs where it's like, man, I'm doing the
just
same
life
thing
in general.
every day.
Things can get stale. Being a parent can get stale. It can all get stale. That's why you want variety. It's why even relationships, they talk about spicing up the relationship. It's like, yeah, you want to make sure it doesn't get stale.
Yeah, definitely.
Next question.
Oh, it's getting back in. So, do you remember when we met each other?
No, but I could say odds. It's probably in class.
No. I don't remember her name, but you had a girl teaching class for, I think...
Lilani.
Yeah. She did my class. I met you at my release meeting.
Release meeting, okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be my second choice.
So I met you at my release meeting.
In my defense, okay, we have new agents and leaders. Like, it's hard for me to pinpoint the exact time I meet them, but I appreciate that. Okay, so release meeting.
But at the time, and it's different now, but used to do a practice presentation.
Yes, we would do a full pres.
full
We would review
presentation.
reports, do a full pres. Yep.
And then you would have a follow-up one a week later.
Yes.
And everyone had prepared me so much for that release meeting. They're like, just so you know, he's a busy guy. He might not be focused. Da, 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 da. He might, like, other people might be talking to him. I was so prepared for that. And then on top of that, I think I had like 8 down closes minimum and that I was going to do. And I remember I went to the presentation. We're not distracted whatsoever. You were razor focused in. I was like, I did not prepare for that. And then the other
This
thing
would have been
is-
back when we were at the office on Port Chicago too, correct? Yeah. So that would have been like, when a lot of people are still in office. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so
Keep going.
you were not distracted at all. You were like just in this
Because I knew it was you, dude. Totally.
Totally.
Yeah,
okay.
totally.
And then you had only had me do like 2 or 3 down closes.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, yeah, you're pretty good. And I was like, hold on, wait. I want to do more.
Fight me more. Yeah. It's like, come on, bring it on.
This isn't it. I prepared more.
Yeah.
You gave me great ways to like feed off down closes, off your
Softballs.
story.
Was I softballing you a little bit?
A little bit.
apologize
And you were
for
telling
that.
me you were in your old home and you're like, I just, I want to get a different house, but you hadn't found this one yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have so many down closes off this.
Okay.
Easy. And then you stopped. I was like, hold on, no, we're going to keep going. I'm not done. And then in the follow-up, we talked a little bit about what I was looking for a career, and I told you I was going to come for your job.
And you still say that to this day. And I keep saying there's enough seats at the table for all of us. Why do you have to like come after me, man?
But I really wanted to make it clear, I want to be an SGA. That's where I want to be.
That doesn't mean you have to take my SGA. You can,
I mean, I'm just saying, Andrew, one day you got to retire, and I'll be here.
how old are you again, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 30. No, I just turned 31.
Okay, we're probably going to be retiring around the same age, so pump the brakes.
But no, I just wanted to make it clear I want to be an SGA. I want to
100%.
like be moving forward.
I think that's like, wouldn't you agree? I think destination positions are important to establish when you enter any job. Like, what's the destination here? And I would say, like, either agency ownership, an agent, you can definitely make that's a destination position for sure. RGA or SGA. You're either the owner or the right hand of the owner.
Yeah.
And I think those are like the destination, which there can be many, right hands or whatever. But yeah, so.
But
I
yeah,
think it's a good call.
that's how our follow-up meeting went. And you were like, why do you gotta come for my job?
Yeah.
And I think at the time you were a little like, yeah, we'll see. Da, da, da. And then after October competition, when I cleaned house,
Like, okay, it's possible.
and I went to 201, and you were like, okay, you weren't messing around.
Well, you have to admit, like, and it's once again not to disparage people, but it isn't very common for people to come through on everything they say they're going to do. Like, it isn't actually that common. Yeah. So it's a breath of fresh air, and it's one of the things I learn in leadership to watch my mouth sometimes, because I do say, it's like, all right, man, we'll see. But unfortunately, 1 out of those 20 really do mean it, and you got to be like, you don't want to turn them off. So yeah, you were one of those 20 for sure. Well, actually, I'd say like 1 out of 100 in some circumstances, but
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
dude,
sure a
you
ton
stepped
of
up to
people
the
say
plate.
that.
It just, for those, once again, listening, Ariel, since she's taken her MGA last month, she was the top, she's a brand new MGA. She's already top MGA last week. And then last month you were ranked like on the podium. Like it's first 6 month production.
By 1,000.
No, yeah, dude, number 3 by like it's trending great. So typically when you're a brand new senior leader, it takes a couple months to build the squad, kind of get rolling. Yeah, man, you hit the ground running. Very serious.
Definitely. I'm coming for #1 MGA.
Do it. Do it.
For the whole month. But we took BFO too, which was super cool.
So BFO, once again for those, is, when you're a sales leader, there's total production is important, or total sales numbers is important, but also it's very healthy to measure your new people. So we take first 6 month production, people within their first 6 months. And yes, so Ariel is currently, by a pretty good stretch, #1. And guys, we have 14?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
14 teams right now. So it's not like just 4 people, right? It's 14 people, some of which have been in the business for 14.
I think
One of our
Paul's been
senior
in the
leaders is like,
longest. I don't know how long
yeah.
he's been here.
I think 14 years now.
Yeah.
Everyone else 8, 9, 2.5. They haven't even been high school yet, So very impressive, very impressive. But you don't need to take my job, okay? So once again, Pump the brakes on that, please.
One of the things I was super
With my children right next to us. You're scaring them. You know what I mean?
I gotta let them know.
You gotta let them know you could be working for me one day.
But I think one of the things that was most exciting about, all of our achievements last month is not only did we take home BFO, which is super cool, especially as my second month,
Yes.
but also my leaders did really well.
Yeah.
We took home
You guys,
first and second
are,
SA.
And you guys are, yes, you got Lily was number 2, Brandon number 1, once again by a large margin. Not only that, but they both had comparable level 1 production, their own production. So it's, you can see, because they're not directly coded to each other.
They're
So
to me.
when you have leaders that are not actually financially tied to each other, both performing at high level, it's usually representation of culture, right? Like you got a body of, I don't want to say disinterested, but they're borderline in competition with each other, right? You got a body of like-minded people going to a common goal. It's not easy to do, especially that early in the team's exposure, right?
And
It's
another
impressive.
essay that was number 6. And she's like, I'm coming for you guys
There
next
you go.
month. And they definitely are. They, watch how each other are kind of performing, not only in their individual, but as their team. Codes are a big thing where they're racing. I code my person faster than you. Just you wait.
Code being getting a new person their first piece of business.
On their own,
Yep.
And I love the competitive spirit.
I think it's so important in business too, though. We all know the saying, iron sharpen iron, right? But there's no secret. If you have 2 leaders that perform and compete with each other, that's contagious. And it's so when I talk to people, I know you'll agree with me on this. When I talk to people, you can just tell they're looking for environments that are easy, or there's not a lot of competition, or they're easily number 1. I hate those kind of environments. You need to be in environments where you're in some video games. You want to be good at something. It should be really hard. You want to get better at something. There's got to be someone who's there's got to be someone that can be kind of we say rabbit, but your pace horse or whatever. So I think that's what's going on with your team. You got a bunch of like-minded people that are trying to do well, and now some of them are really starting to shine. And so it's becoming right. That's the standard, man. We all got up our game, I guess, or I'm not. Yeah, so I think it's such a positive culture to create. Results breed culture. I think it's the strongest way to build culture in a business. Go for the results. Cultures, I feel when people try and develop culture before results, it becomes a very buddy-buddy. We're going to overlook our lack of results because we love each other, right? We're brothers and blah, 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 blah. It's that's cool, but we're in business. Get the results first. The culture will naturally follow, and those relationships will naturally follow. I don't think it should be the other way around. So I think you guys are doing it great. When I look at your guys' chat line, when I look at everything, you can tell they're excited to be on a winning team. You could also argue, especially in performance-based jobs, when you're on a winning team, it's I can go to the top. I can, because I'm with the squad that, by definition, should be the one hitting these contracts. They're doing the best, right? So, you guys have created a very solid culture very early on, results-based.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect.
And it's very interesting, too, seeing people who aren't performing. Because I try to really support people as much as I can. I mean, like I said, one of the biggest things that, if there's one thing I know I can do, I can work hard and I can give a shit.
Yeah.
and so one of the things that I notice when people aren't performing, or they were performing, they have a little bit of a roller coaster, is they are very, they notice that, okay, this is because my efforts are a roller coaster, or I'm not doing what I need to do. And it's obvious because we have a team of high performers. Everyone's trying their best. And so when you have someone doing the bare minimum, it's super noticeable. It's super noticeable.
They're the outliers. Yeah, they become the outlier.
And it's just super interesting kind of seeing how someone kind of handles that. And they're like, I thought I was the high performer until at any job I've had before, or that I was working harder than anyone else. And not getting paid more, but then I came here and I realized, oh no, I'm kind of lazy. Yeah.
You're not lazy at all, but it's yes, there's another gear I can click into to keep up with this crowd. But that's a good environment. You know what I mean? I think you kind of touched on this. You want to be a good winner, you got to learn how to lose. So it's if you are in a body of people, it's man, I joined a new job or a new team and I'm kind of getting my butt kicked. That's a good thing. That means that there's a skill gap that you can learn, become the next version of yourself. I think the wrong people go into those environments and get turned off by it. And usually it's the blame game, right? Yeah. They're doing something unethical, they're doing something like that. It's no, man, they might just be better than you and working harder than you. And it's and you want to be open to that because that's an environment that's probably, advantageous to your growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think your team's blossoming that environment where malperformance, which I know is kind of a bad word to use, but is the outlier as an easily identifiable. Like that's a really good culture when it's like, I know we establish the players, right? But it's like when everyone's doing pretty good, it's like it's hard to distinguish who's the best, who's not. That's a great environment,
One of the things that kind of helps with that environment too is our war report is visible to everybody.
Yeah.
And what's kind of cool is I have multiple devices. I'll have devices in all the rooms.
You're like a mad scientist behind that little command center, you know what I mean?
I'll have like 3 headphones in,
Yeah.
so people never really know when
For
I'm
the
like,
listeners,
fully
her leaders will literally have iPhone earbuds in, then they'll have, big, headphones over that, and then one ear's off so she can also hear like the stuff that's, it's wild to me.
That's kind of how my setup is I have 3 devices that are almost always on. I have one that's my iPad on a mount, and it has the iPhone ear button. I have a super old Mac that's doing its best, and I have a headset with a microphone because usually I'm in with clients in that one. Like just shadowing stuff, things like that. And then I have my PC with the big over the ears. But what's interesting is I really get to kind of be a fly on a wall for a lot of conversations where someone might be complaining that, oh, I'm not doing well. And what's really cool is seeing normal agents pull up the war report and go, well, you're not doing well because you're doing 60 dials.
Yeah, you're doing literally a quarter of what the rest of us are.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, scroll down, and they'll tell them, like, hey, pull up the war report with me. Scroll down to one person, 2 people, whatever. The reason this person's made 6 sales this week is because they've done 1,500 dials versus your 200. Yep. And they call a ton of referrals and things like that. And so it's kind of cool hearing people regurgitate things I've told them. And I even at an agent level of like, dude, let's work on your referrals.
It is a really cool experience. It's the same as it can also be a terrifying experience as a parent, but people you look after, people you develop, when you hear it's like, hey man, that's what I say. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I have I have a lot of sayings, you guys know, like I say, you know what I'm saying, or I say cool, or it's like, dude. And it's funny because I say yo dude a lot to people at corporate. I'm like, yo, what's up, dude? Now everyone at corporate says yo dude, like do that thing. I love when your leaders and agents are kind of thinking like you, talking like you. That means there's something about the culture and ethos that you're building that is attractive to people. They want to be a little bit more like Ariel. I think it's a great thing. It's a really flattering thing when people,
cool. For sure.
Yeah. Well, like I said, with kids, sometimes not the best. Like when they are, my kids are repeating my mouth. They are little sailors, dude. It ain't good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Lord help me when we have kids, because me and my husband are super sarcastic.
Dude.
Oh,
you guys will never be able to have a serious family conversation.
No, never.
Sure, Mom, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I know as soon as they get talking, I mock my husband sometimes where he'll say something, I'm like, oh, okay, let me just get on that. Yeah. And he hates it. He calls it the old man voice. He's like, I'm not old. So I already know stuff like that's coming up. Or he'll mess with me, and granted he does it sometimes when I'm driving and I have earrings on that are metal. He'll find a magnet in the car or something, and I'll click the magnet to my earring. I'm like, go away, leave me alone. And so I know we're gonna have kids that are gonna irritate the
pranksters that are sarcastic.
Out of me. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sarcastic pranksters.
So I kind of want to talk about the kind of beginning of this podcast and how it came about. When I first came to you with it, what were kind of your first thoughts?
So me and some of the leaders talked about it. Me and one of my admins who helps me with everything, we really wanted to do it. I had actually a lot of younger agents and leaders say that it would be good. I could probably do it pretty good, and but I am inherently kind of lazy. So then Ariel came along. So I've always wanted to do it. I think it's a great outreach. When we went to virtual, which we're committed to, for me is I think offices are great for camaraderie and rubbing elbows and motivation and accountability. But I think for me, my experience with offices, there's also a high level of toxicity. It can be very toxic, and bad things can happen, obviously. So we committed to this. I think there's a loss of that. When you're in the office, you'll just overhear conversations, and there's just everyone, hang up the phones real fast. I got something I want to talk about. We lost a little bit of that. So I think a podcast, or just whatever mediums we use for this, great outreach. I think it's great for people to learn what we do, how we do it. I think it's a very common medium of communication now. I think podcasts are very common and everyone kind of loves them, so it kind of keeps up with the times. But I think it's just a better way for us to get our voices out there, have guests talk about life and all these things that we're going to bring up during this podcast. But the reason we're doing it is because of you. It's just something I've talked about, and I'm very good at this, talking about things but not quite doing them. So, but usually when a player calls, like, all right, Andrew, you said you want to do it. So I guess, the reason we're jumping on is because your initiative, which I appreciate, and I'm very excited about it. But yeah, I think with today's time being a virtual business, I think it's kind of important to have one. It's just another form of communication where we can get concepts out. Like if you came to our meetings and our trainings, like, yeah, you hear this stuff like every day. So, but it's like for people that are just open to it, or maybe they're in other sales or businesses. Like I do some stuff with energy and I do some stuff with real estate. And it is interesting how many, they're very relative and how many commonalities despite the industry there are. So I think it's just a great way of, like I said, getting our name out there, having another level of communication, having a platform for guests and stuff to give their stories, and hopefully as we grow, it will just be something that can provide some help and some guidance and maybe some clarity, maybe some engagement and excitement. But I think it's just a necessary medium to throw in any business nowadays, especially when it's virtual. Yeah, and also, like, we're in sales. Like what we do for a living is transferring energy from one party to the next, right? So I would argue, I don't know if insurance is the sexiest industry out there, okay? Yeah, I don't think I'm going out on a limb with that. So it's like, I think with doing these things, you can see, like these are the people that are involved, and some of us 7-figure income earners, some even bigger than that, so a lot of 6-figure income, like people have really built their lives, and they're funny, good, charismatic, and I think maybe bringing some awareness to that could also help our cause.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Were you surprised I had a whole outline for you?
Yes and no. Was I surprised you were this far into it? But I was surprised that Ariel Anderson already had this whole thing mapped out, like literally the next 6 months ago. Not at all. I would assume that much. Guys, she even had questions, how we should respond, like what players, who the guests are. I was like, okay, so what do you need me to do? She's basically like, show up. We'll use your place, show up, So no, I was not, knowing you, that's why I'm excited to do it with you, because I know, to my credit, I put a lot of effort into a lot of things too. I'm kind of casting this narrative that I don't, but it's like, it's because of you that actually made me commit to doing it, because you're obviously someone I really enjoy talking to, a leader I look up to, and someone who I think is going to be a really big deal in the future. But I also really trust your brain organizationally to help do these things. But the reason we're doing this is primarily because you showed the initiative.
Thank you.
And so you guys know she's paying me my stone cold $500 an hour. So
yeah, $500 an hour for sure. Yeah. It was funny. I was talking to my husband before I approached you for it. I talked to my husband and I talked to the team. I kind of like ran what I was thinking through. And I remember when I had the day before told my husband, I've been really wanting to do a podcast for a long time. I talked about doing one with one of my friends. And it just kind of hadn't happened. I think it was a lot of like, I didn't know what to talk about with them. That wasn't just like bullshit.
Yeah.
And then the day before I was like, it'd be really cool to do one with Andrew.
Yeah.
And I bet we could talk about some cool stuff. And then come the next day, I came back around and was talking to my husband. I was like, okay, this is my plan. This is what it will be named. This is what we'll be doing. It's going to be 6 months long. This is how many recordings there will be. We'll have to pre-record for these like couple ones because I'm out at a wedding. And my husband was like, what happened between today and yesterday? He was like, you were making lunch, just like, oh, that would be cool to do yesterday.
Now it's trademarked, designed, ready to go. You know what I mean?
And he always laughs at me because that's kind of how I do things, where I think of something, I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. And then I get obsessed with it and it like sticks in my head, and then I'm like, okay, but it could be about this, and this is how it could work, and this is what it'll look like down the road.
Right?
Yeah.
It's pro-noia.
Very much so. That's kind of how I work on projects and stuff like that, which is why he hates when I have one 9-to-5 job, because I'm doing that with our house, where I'm like, we'll do this project and this project and this project, and this is how they'll line up and work with each other. But he cracks me up because he was telling me, he's like, I don't know anyone who does stuff like that, where you're just like, oh, that'd be cool to do. And then does it the next day.
Execution, man. Execution's one of the most important parts of life, your ability to execute. So yes, you execute very well.
Thank you. But I think I just get like obsessed with it, with an idea, and then I think about it, I think about it, I think about it, I think about it, and then I put it on paper.
Yes.
But he was definitely cracking me up with that. And then I talked about it with the team, and they were like, okay, like, you know, what are you thinking about talking about? And I was like, well, let me pull up my outline. And I went over it with them probably about an hour before I went over it with you.
Yep.
And they were a little bummed. They weren't in our meeting that we do every other week, but I talked to them about it beforehand.
And I think a lot of them will be guessing everything anyway moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and they were also like, when I talked to them about why that I wanted to pitch you that, they were like, say less.
Yeah.
Like, no problem. That's super cool. And I don't remember who it was, but one of them was like, how many chances do you get to pitch doing a podcast with a multimillionaire? Like, that's just not something most people even have the opportunity to do. So they definitely had no problem with it, and they helped me adjust a couple little things. And they're like, oh yeah, you could start off like talking to them like this.
I think we've known each other and all that. Like, I don't know. So another thing about podcasts, which I could tell, like I watch a couple, it seems like they're not like scripted, but heavily outlined. And I was like, I don't know if I'm, like, that's something I'm not great at. So for some, I felt doing them with you would be exciting because I think we riff good. Like, it's like, I have zero discomfort whenever I speak to you, which is good. That's important, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Which surprisingly is not extremely common. There's a lot of people I communicate with, I was like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm excited to do this. I think it's a great idea. I'm very happy that you held me to it and pushed me to. And I think it's going to, you know, everything starts small, but that's what kind of makes the beauty of the journey, right? So I'm excited to see what this blossoms into long term.
Absolutely.
Better be more than 6 months. You know, we got it.
Well, it's first season.
First season, that's right.
First season.
I think we signed a 7-season contract with NBC, something like that.
Yeah, something little like that.
Yeah.
I remember when I said that, and you were like, one season? How many seasons are we doing? And I was like, why do we gotta limit it?
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm into it.
But what do you think are the biggest things listeners can expect going forward? If you were to name a couple.
So I like our title, you know, Blueprint, Legacy and Launch. You know, I think what can they expect? You know, for me, like when I want to build a legacy, it's kind of two things. I want to make sure there's money. I think we are going to talk a lot about money. You know, money's very neutral. Give it to good people, good things happen. Give it to bad people, bad things happen. But I think we'll talk a lot about money. What it can do for you, how to manage it, how to gain wealth and scale it a little bit. You know, I think another thing that goes into legacy would be lessons. You know, I want my kids to take a lot of lessons from me on how life is and how they should become productive, contributing human beings. So I think there'll be a lot of mentality stuff. I think there'll be a lot of habit stuff. I think we'll have probably a lot of like ideas and tactics they can use to better themselves or whatever. I think they can also expect a little bit of a call to arms. Like, you know, we are hiring and we want to scale the team, and, you know, it's I think they can expect that. We'll have guests, so I think they can expect to find a lot of commonality with the people we speak with and bring on for sure. I would hope they can expect some level of entertainment. You know, I think there'll be some good stuff we talk about. I think there's a lot they can expect. But like, you know, generically speaking with our title, I want us to kind of center around young professionals, people striving to build something. Like, what kind of blueprints, what kind of habits and tactics and routines can we establish to have the best odds of success? And the hope is with that, you can not only launch, you know, whether no matter stage, you can launch a new career, you know, you can rebrand yourself every day, right? So kind of like launch that and then hopefully turn that into a legacy of your own. So I think that encompasses a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it.
I think we should. And it's like, so yeah, I think what listeners can expect is a lot of all of the above. Is like, what kind of blueprints do you want to establish and how do we launch those, and then how can we make sure those turn into a legacy will be like the general concepts.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely. And I'm sure you'll see family running around, things like that.
Yeah, I think we'll have some guests. We'll be sweet. We'll bring family players and all that, and some other people from the office. We got a lot of very successful people, so yeah.
And I think we have some really cool interviews planned for the future as well that I think will be a lot of fun. What would you say are the biggest things that'll separate this podcast from other podcasts within the business?
It's a great question. So I'm going to start by making, let it be known, disclaimer, I don't watch other podcasts from, so I have no idea, but I would assume a lot of those podcasts are like grind and hustle and la la. It's like, I'm not, I think that stuff's important for sure. But I think the obsession with that culture is just like I don't know, maybe I'm aging. But I think what will be different, I think we'll be a little more real about like, life and family, and I don't know. I don't really know if I want to be like a hustle, grind it out, like that kind of thing is like, which I think we all can establish is important if you want to be a lawyer, doctor, anyone, like I think that's an accepted fact. I'd rather, I think we'll probably focus more on like the back half of that. Like as you hustle and grind, what can you expect? What can you plan for? What can you adjust to make sure you don't like, because if you hustle and grind, but you don't have any energy or enjoyment for what it's produced, what's the point, right? And if you're standing alone after you build those things, I would argue may not have been worth it either. So I probably should start watching the podcasts in the industry. It might be useful to me, but for now I would assume a lot of them are very salesy, grind, that kind of stuff, which we'll have some of, but I have a feeling we'll put more on like the, I don't want to say like hippy dippy, but I feel like we'll be a little more hippy dippy.
Yeah. I definitely feel like that too, especially since like
You just pointed at me like I'm a hippie. That's what was that? You kind of
No,
did
I
that
meant
thing.
more of like we know each other well. We get along well. We've known each other quite some time at this point. I also don't watch any of the podcasts in the industry, so I've heard about them, like at the different leadership academies, things like that. They always plug their podcasts, but I think it'll be a little different in kind of like what you're saying is it's not going to be really about the grind. It's going to be more about kind of the reality around that, right? If you're, grumpy, burnout, or if you're just solely focused on that, you're not paying any attention to your personal life, like that's just asking for it to be unbalanced. And I think the balancing is really what launches that legacy, is you being able to have the harmony, like you were talking about with business and family.
Yep.
And I think the biggest difference I see with this organization, even within, the company we work with, is it's a lot more diverse in the people that we work with.
Yep.
It's a lot of, single parents, just kind of average Joes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't get excited when I go into a neighborhood and all the houses are like the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like neighborhoods where all the houses are unique. So it's like when we were building our house, our organization, it was important to me. I think America's foundation, all of it's based off variety, right? So so you got one shot on this planet, dude. No matter what of the 3,000 gods we've created, you look up to, it's like there's a strong possibility this might be that shot, and it's like to live that with just like one demo or one way of thinking. I don't know, man. I find that to be boring. So I think diversity and all that's something that we kind of hang our hats on, and I think we execute very well. So that's what I think will be a little different.
What's your favorite insurance product to sell?
My favorite insurance product to sell? Never even thought of that. I would say our RNC, our term, to be honest, because it's got a lot of flexibility. I find it to be kind of unique. I think it's extremely important for like most demographics as far as age goes. So we have a term product that renews or converts every 10 years. You can renew it for that term again, or you can convert it into a more permanent, which would be a whole life policy. And I think that's just kind of cool. Like you can get it when you're in your 20s, it will just automatically renew for standard rates for that age. And then whenever you're ready, convert it into permanent coverage and I think that's just cool, Another thing I like is waiver of premium. I learned this when I came out here. We have a product where if you become disabled, whether for 3 months or the rest of your life or whatever, we take over payments. I'm paraphrasing. Okay. We one of our senior agents walked me through a claim where this guy had a 10 RNC at a policy that was about to fall off due to his age. Like he couldn't qualify for it anymore. The waiver of premium automatically converts that into whole life. And since it's on a waiver, we're paying for it. So his family's about to, no matter what, receive $400,000 when he dies.
Wow.
So I was like, that's a really cool bell and whistle that I was completely unaware of. So I'd say 10 RNC with a waiver of premium attached would be like my favorite, because I think it's just a really cool, I don't know. But that's probably it.
Yeah. I would say mine is, now obviously coming from death care, the whole life we do, absolutely. I've seen it pay out so quickly, which can honestly make such a big difference.
Yep.
And But not only that, honestly, the A71.
Yeah, I think a
accidental
lot of people would say that.
hospitalization,
Yeah, I think a lot of people would say that.
It's such a good product,
Yeah.
and especially with us working with the working class, some of their jobs are very dangerous. I have a client that made like 9 claims last year.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you got on the whole family, which is like what, $3 extra a month or something, and it's like, all right, paraphrasing, but yeah, you got on your whole family, football injuries, sport injuries, all that. It's all covered.
Yeah, and he's an
Agreed.
iron worker, so his job's just super dangerous.
Agreed
Yeah,
for sure.
so I think those 2 products, they're very different products to me. So
Yeah.
I would say they're both kind of my favorite, just because the whole life can be so important if they don't have anything planned for.
Yeah, I think our cancer program's actually starting to become super popular now with people too. So that'll probably another one I'd throw up there.
Yeah.
Because I've seen, the CNM especially, where it just gives that family a ton of money if they get diagnosed. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
What would you say is your worst day in business?
Dude. That's an impossible question for me. I'd really have to think about that, because there's been some bad days, and a lot of them were me learning to hold my tongue. I said or outspoken, I should just shut up. You don't have to engage in every battle. Pick your battles is a very important thing that we were probably told as kids, like I was told as a kid, but I really learned that the hard way, is like stop engaging in everything you don't agree with. It's problematic. One of the darkest times was probably when I left being an RGA and going to corporate. So I did it at the end of 2019. And so there was like that December where I wasn't an agency and I was basically just getting ready to go to corporate. And it was 30 days of me panicking, because I literally just gave up like a $600,000 to $800,000 a year income to basically make a fraction of that and travel and never see my family. And it started to really set in that that's what I decided to do. And I was like, what am I doing? So that was scary. And to be honest, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened, where I was like, yeah, this is not good, So that was probably, not saying it was like a terrible time, because I think I had a trainer who's now a VP that was spectacular. I had the best experience I feel like I could have. Those were dark times where I thought the most emotional I've been was when I was at the corporate, because I was worried that, is this literally what the rest of my life is going to be? I was settling for average. I was like, okay, I'm going to be average now. It's like, because I can't get commissions, I can't, I literally.
What caused you to make that shift?
It's probably a conversation for a later date, but it's because it's a lot. It's, I was in the agency for 9 years. There were shifts happening with the major players I was not a big fan of. Our old owner used to call me his Jiminy Cricket, and I didn't really like that, where it's like I find myself to be righteous or whatever, but I'm not like I don't know. So it's like the fact, so I'm the good guy out of everybody. I was like, oh, that's not good. It's like, if I'm like the Obi-Wan of this team, like that scares me a little bit. And there were like some specific situations with specific teams where clearly terrible things were happening and we were just not doing anything about it. And for me, I want my kids to be proud of me. So like if my kids saw what I was a part of, would they be proud of that? And the answer was no. Addie was, I didn't have William yet, but Addie was old enough where she was adorable. She was just starting to speak a little bit. It's like one of the cutest ages. And it was like, when I would come home from a bad day, she'd run like, da-da, like be all excited. It's like, if she just saw some of the shit I had to do and talk about it that day, she would have been like, Dad, come on.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's when I was like, you know what, I gotta change here. But it was an emotional decision versus a logical one. And so it had some major emotional repercussions. So that was probably the darkest time. And that went on for 9 months.
Wow.
So yeah,
That was a long time.
It was dark.
Yeah.
But my mom had my back. Julie had my back. Well, I don't know. It made the people that really mattered to me in my life really like solidified our relationships.
That's awesome.
So I'd say that was probably the darkest time.
Yeah.
But you want to go specific days? Do I have some stories for you? I'm sorry, I know I'm talking too much, but this wasn't a terrible day, but it's like, this was like a wake up to the business. When I first got into leadership and we got Nebraska, I remember there's a trip we drove out. My trainee was like, we did not mesh. She was fine, but it's like just very like, we just didn't mesh, right? But we made it happen. We got there. The night at the hotel was terrible. She was just impossible to please and blah, blah. I'm like, look, man, like I'm paying for everything. I don't know what to tell you. This is how it is. But then I remember on our way back, this is stricken in my memory. We're driving back. It's like probably 2 a.m. And we hear the tornado sirens going off. It's whirr, you know that. This is like really east Colorado. If you know anything about way eastern Colorado, there ain't shit for miles, right? It's like gas stations maybe every 10 miles. So those sirens start going off, and I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. Lightning, and everything gets green. Like, you know, when you get the lightning, you can see the green. There's so many clouds we can barely see in front of us. So I feel like we're like in the tornado, and then my gas light comes on.
Oh,
and
no.
this is when me and the trainee actually got close. She started, she's like, I'm freaking out. I gotta play music that will make me happy. And so she starts like turning up, whatever. It was like No Doubt or some shit was playing, and I'm like panicking, and she has No Doubt screaming on the mic to make her feel good. I'm like, the gas, we're out of gas. Like, I'm like, oh, everything's falling apart. So it's like I have a lot of stories like that where it was like traveling salesperson stories. But yeah, darkest time was definitely the transition. Because it was unknown, it was terrifying. I think I made a bad decision. Ironically enough, it turned into an amazing one. So, yeah.
Awesome. What would you say is the best day in business, though?
Right now, today's the best day.
Today's the best.
No, just been a ton, dude. Once again, our first year, we won category and stuff. That was awesome. Our first full year together, that was great. Executive council, which is like a council with SGAs. They take the top guys and girls and got onto that the earliest you could. That was awesome. Jade and Paul, like I've had some leaders that have won their categories. It's just awesome. Highlights for sure. Promotion days are exciting. So there's a lot. But for me, I think I will say, to counter what I said were the dark times, when I took over the agency or bought half of it, I had to live out. My wife was pregnant with William back in Colorado. She's an amazing woman. She was pregnant. She cleaned the house, sold it. She did all that without me. That was so impressive. I had a great time going from Airbnb. I had someone from my last agency that came out with me because he wanted to start over and build it with me, which he's still with us today. But anyway, so we were living outside with the Airbnb to Airbnb, super fun in an area I've never been to, which is California. So that was an awesome experience. And we were like wheeling and dealing. I was writing business training. All the leaders were revamped and reinvigorated because I was a new guy coming in. Those were highlights for sure. Just those first 2 years. There were bad days, but those first 2 years were just so much fun building the agency. They're still fun today, but it was new. So, I would say the beginning stages of this SGA was probably some of my biggest highlights. It's awesome. What
would you say is your best parenting or parenting win or fail this week?
This week? I mean, win for sure was Addie's birthday. We killed it, dude. Our friends had a blast. We had a blast. The parents had a blast. It's tough to make everybody happy. So it was awesome. There were no tears. There were no nothing. So it was awesome. Fails. Parenting fail. What is one? Oh, yesterday during Addie's party, I accidentally shut down the big inflatable slide while my son was on it. He's all, help me! And the whole thing's like collapsing. I was like, that was a pretty bad fail, but luckily I saved it before he got stuck up there. But yeah, I would say, so success and failure was the party, and then me accidentally turning it off while kids were in there. That was kind of a fail. Yeah. This week, but that was just yesterday, so there'll probably be some more successes and failures today too.
Oh yeah.
With parenting, it's you're a guide, right? And it's kind of like a doctor. They're at practice. Parents, you're at practice. It's like it's a constant. So, but yeah, those would be the recent ones.
Yeah. What would you say is one goal you want for this podcast?
I mean, I want to learn the skill set on how to do it. I'm hoping another goal is it kind of transcends our organization and becomes like, you know what I mean? Like it becomes something that's independent in its own right. That'd be kind of cool, right?
That would be cool.
Yeah, I think that, but also maybe just, something that our organization, maybe people that want to join it, or like people that just like our content, that it just makes an impact, I think would be a good one. But yeah, I would like for it to become an independent entity on itself would be a legitimate, tangible goal that I would go for.
Okay.
You know
awesome.
what I mean?
I like that. I would say mine is that...
Like, can we make some money off it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say mine is definitely that it inspires people we work with, inspires the team.
Okay, now I feel like a jerk. Your answer is way nicer and more poetic than mine.
I don't know about all that. Okay. Let me finish it.
Okay, sorry.
It'll get less poetic.
Okay.
But I would say that it inspires people, that I work with, that you work with, newer agents coming in, that you can come in and say, I'm coming for your job. And then here we are 2 years later, you know, doing a podcast together. I really want it to kind of give the blueprint and give that inspiration still to new people coming in, that if you're going to go for something, pitch it right, be organized with it, and have the follow through with it.
Yep.
And social media is not something that is a strong suit for me by any means. Anyone can look at my social media and see I haven't even posted I got married. And I got married 2.5 years ago. So I will eventually post wedding photos. But I definitely think, you know, go out of your comfort zone and just have the follow through and don't give up.
Perfect.
Even if it's uncomfortable.
Love it.
But definitely, I do want to say, you know, you guys make sure you like, follow, share, comment, all the
Like,
things.
follow, subscribe.
Like, follow, subscribe. There we go. You got it much more organized.
You've watched YouTube a lot, I know.
Yeah. You know, make sure you guys tune in week over week. This is our first episode, so this is going to be, you know, arguably our worst episode.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, let's not commit to that. They will get better through time.
Absolutely.
Better tools, better content, better everything.
Better everything. And I think as we kind of get comfortable in it, I think it will also just get better with age.
100%.
Like a fine wine.
100%.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks for staying tuned. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.